Let her ride.
Yeah, buddy.
So, getting to Spain, Taylor did all the research for this trip. I didn't do anything. Taylor booked me a flight, was like, hey, you want to go to Spain? I was like, yeah, I'm there. Didn't once look into any of these destinations, if I'm being honest. Just kind of showed up. So it's interesting, going into Spain, I didn't have the same mentality that I normally go into rock climbing trips with. And I'm not sure if it was necessarily the destination in itself, or the experience of just being in a different country. But typically when I go into a rock climbing trip, I feel this need to train super hard for it. And I get really excited about a particular objective. And that whole trip revolves around like this one objective that's kind of like lurking in the back of my mind, and the whole entire time I'm on this trip I'm like, ooh, like getting nervous and excited for this one particular massive wall that we're gonna climb, and it's gonna be really hard and probably a little scary. But this trip didn't really have that element. However, it doesn't mean that I wasn't excited for the trip. I was really excited for this trip. And I think Spain just really had this different kind of allure to it, where it was a whole nother place in the world that I've never been before. And I got to experience going to Spain with one of my best friends. And we didn't really plan much besides the destinations that we were going to go to. Just kind of like, we're gonna get there, we're gonna be in Spain, and we're gonna climb whatever looks good. But regardless, we're gonna be in a new place and there's gonna be rocks around. So we're gonna enjoy ourselves. And the whole trip just had this relaxed mindset to it.
I think everyone's perception on rock climbing is different. Like, some people were trying to push grades, some people want to climb big walls, some people want to hang out at their local gym and be a gym rat. For me, what I find the most enjoyment out of is going to a really remote area that's barely tapped by people, where I can fully immerse myself in nature and not have to think about my adult responsibilities. You know, the 9 to 5 is just put to the side, and I'm here with some of my best friends looking at this wall, trying to figure out the most efficient way to get up it. And when I look back at some of my fondest memories through my 20s, it was on a wall with my best friends, dehydrated as fuck, without any food, just struggling our way up this big wall. There's something about the mental fortitude of rock climbing that is unmatched by any other activity you can do. Because when it comes to scaling a wall, you can't pay money for that experience. You have to earn it. You have to physically put in the time, the effort, and the energy to scale this wall. And it's not something that's gonna happen overnight. This is something that you put years and years and years of love and energy into. And when you do come out on the other side and you reach that summit, there is no greater feeling.
Tilly getting ready for the tee off here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And we going way up there. Ho, ho. Yeah, buddy. We ride where the birds fly. Woo. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Meh.
Mm-hmm. Just what the doctor ordered.
Right.
Woo-wee. Be out here.
Sick. Sick. Nah, but these moves are cool. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yep.
Dude, hell of a lead, man.
Thank you.
That thing was freaking out. All right, here we are. Top of pitch 6, maybe 7. Ooh, Tilly's climbing. Got the young Tillman coming up here. Ooh, little traverse pitch. Extra cherry. Slight overhang too, huh?
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit. Woo. And we're baking in the sun. You call it that Spanish gold, if you will. Maybe they were looking for some. Ooh. Woo. Another bomber pitch. What do you think, Till?
That was so sick.
Fucking epic. Ooh.
Oh, the dogs need to come out.
Dogs are squirting, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tilly is fucking hang dogging the crux section here. I also had to hang dog it. Spice Girl 100, dude. That exposure. Gaba. There it is.
early. Yeah.
What's up, boys? The top of Mosquitos. What is it, 6B?
6B, they say.
6B.
Whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah.
Oh.
We definitely earned some ice cream.
We time wave zeroed ourselves again. It's hot as fuck.
Yeah, overcooked. We got strawberry shortcake ice cream pops.
Oh, we're definitely smacking back a few of those.
Yeah, I might have to.
Because I'm just a little lad who loves berries and cream. Berries and cream. Berries and cream.
The mindset for this trip was a little bit different. And that's because we were coming off a grotto season where we're projecting super hard things like in the low 13s, where you're basically just falling and falling and falling on the same crux over and over again. And at a certain point, you get a little burnt out on that. And your mindset changes more into the sense of, I want to go somewhere new, I want to experience it for what it is, and I want to have a good time. I still want to challenge myself physically, but I want it to be a little more mellow, a little more low key, and just like enjoy the surroundings of what I'm in instead of I need to red point a 13A. And when I put myself in that mindset, I was really at ease. It was like, what adventure are we going on today? We're gonna get there when we get there. And it was an absolute blast the entire time.
Boys are activating.
Yeah, we are.
Galletas. Might piss rain on us, might not. Just gonna have to wait and see and find out, I guess.
Oh boy.
Might be getting wet and wild.
Got Silly tying in over here. And today we are going up there.
Mallo Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, body. Big body takes the sharp end.
Oh yeah. Extra scary. Yeah, buddy.
Fire on fire. Nervous burps. As per usual. Ooh, spinner. Fuck yeah. One more extendo here. Actually, no, you're good. Regular draw there. Extend the next one. Ooh.
Yeah. Fucking big cinder. Ooh-wee. No.
Spice Girl 9000. Yo, body. Where we at?
What are we at? Pitch 6?
7, 8? I don't know. We're
Getting up there.
about like 3 more pitches to go.
Yeah, buddy.
We're standing at the base of
Up the chimneys.
this fat chimney.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Just hanging out in the crow's lair.
About to get chimneying real soon. More like stemming, but
Oh, yeah.
gonna get wide.
Extra wide.
Extra wide. Sick. So fucking stuck on some chalk back. Oh, so much better. Here I go. It's pretty fucking cool though. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, buddy. Come on, crawl out of hell. That's seriously what it felt like. It felt like I was just fucking crawling out of hell, out of the abyss. I saw the light and I was like, oh my god, it's there. Oh míos, Dios.
Hey.
Hey.
Jesus. Oh, the wind. Oh, man.
Sick view. Wow. I step out over the edge there. Woo-wee! Ooh! 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 Oh! So sick! Ooh! 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 Fucking sick.
Where are we at one more time, Till?
Un natural grande!
Oh, shit,
We're
dude.
on the summit of Mallo Fire.
Pitch 11,
Yeah,
absolute
fire.
hammer.
Something like that.
Oh,
All I know is ooh, 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 ooh.
yeah.
Meh.
Dude, we had like 6 pitches of like pretty bomber face climbing, and then straight into a mega chimney for like another 5 pitches.
Off with thinking a mega chimney.
Yeah, dude. Pro, very minimal. So, you know, I peed a couple times, just a little.
On top of Mallo Fire, or Fire. I still don't know. I keep mispronouncing it all day. This is so freaking cool. One of the coolest summits I've stood on. Wow. About 1,000 feet, 350 meters of climbing. Epic day. So sick. Both Riglos and Mont Rebei were awesome places to be in, but I think my expectations for Mont Rebei were a little bit different. Mainly because I kind of expected Riglos to be the fun, casual place to climb. Like, it's going to be really easy. Well, not the climbing is going to be really easy, but the access is going to be easy. It's going to be easy to figure out what routes to climb, what routes not to climb, and just have like a whole bunch of options to pick from. Mont Rebei was definitely a question mark, but I thought for sure it was going to be a bit easier to access some of the walls there than it ended up being. Which kind of led to us showing up at Mont Rebei, and there's these massive 2,000 to 3,000 foot walls that form this gorge around a river. However, we weren't even able to really climb any of the walls because we quickly realized that access to these walls was very challenging. There's not a lot of documentation of the routes and how to get to the routes, the gear you're gonna need. And these are really big objectives. They're not your average do it in a day objective. These are 2,000 foot big wall routes that you might need to spend the night on the wall. And if you don't, then you better know where you're going, what gear you're gonna need, and climb really fast to get to the top of these. And that realization when we got there changed our attitude for Mont Rebei, but I don't think it changed it for better or worse. It just made it a whole different experience than what we had originally thought in our head. And instead of it being all about climbing these really big walls, it just kind of ended up being, hey, let's just, we only have 2 full days here. Let's just explore, romp around, and enjoy this beautiful scenery.
Yeah, buddy. So who's got the better kayaking fun?
It's definitely me.
I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
We're gonna disregard that I totally flipped the kayak and all my gear went into the water.
At least you had a dry bag.
Yeah, did have a dry bag. Was a little grumpy having to figure out how to drain my kayak when there wasn't really easy access to a shore to flip the thing over to get the water out, but it was definitely an experience. This is so cool. We're gonna go up there. And then maybe over there.
Let her ride. Little van action here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Woohoo!
The FBA is going down.
FEA is going down.
Yeah, the mentality's definitely changed quite a bit from when we first started climbing. When I think about the first couple years, it was really just chasing grades. It was like, how quickly can I get to 12A? How quickly can I get to 13A? And I put a lot of value into how hard I can climb, and getting those red points is like checking them off on a list, like, okay, on to the next. And I don't think I took enough time to really sit in that moment. One, of success, two, of the trials and tribulations of each route, and not necessarily picking the most aesthetic lines. Like, I was just picking something because it suited the grade that was above what I had previously red pointed. And as I kind of grow into climbing, I became way more selective, and aesthetics is at the top of my list. If something's not pretty, I'm not really motivated to climb it. Like, I mean, obviously I'm gonna climb it. Like, I love climbing shit. But at the end of the day, if I'm gonna seriously throw myself and a lot of energy into a project, it has to be pretty. And if it's not pretty, we're moving on to the next thing. And when I think about the career, or not the career, but just the overall mentality of like climbing a couple years ago, I would almost like obsess over the route to where that was like all I could think about at every moment of every day. And I don't know if I was necessarily obsessing over the route specifically, or the end objective of getting the red point and checking it off on Mountain Project, which isn't necessarily the most healthy way to go about it. But as I've grown into more experiences with climbing, it's more about, we're just gonna get there when we get there. I want to enjoy the ride. I want to enjoy the people I'm hanging out with. And oh, by the way, I just red pointed my project. So it's a more relaxed, free-flowing experience, and not necessarily this needs to get checked off right now.
Yeah, Till, there we are. Come on.
Heading home, there was predominantly two main thoughts running through my head. First one being, man, I can't wait to tell everyone back home about all the really great experiences I had with Taylor. Second one being a little bit concerning, where instantly you're like, oh, okay, like when I get back home, I gotta do this, and like I gotta progress my career in this way, and start thinking about like how I'm gonna make more money so that I can go on another trip like this again. But in a way like motivational, because I know that I don't want to spend my entire life behind a desk, and that 1 week in Spain,
Bomber.
I hope someday can be just my pure existence, just romping around in the mountains with my friends and enjoying life for what it is, and it sure as hell isn't Microsoft Teams. Yeah.
Here we go, big dog.
So Taylor, where do you see yourself as a climber in, let's say, the next 10 years?
The future's interesting because I always get to the top of a summit and I think there's gonna be like Jaeger bombs and laser beams like waiting for me, and I'm like, where's the nightclub at, dog? Like, I'm trying to get frisky on the dance floor, and it's never there. So I think at some point I'm gonna find that spot. There's gonna be the techno, there's gonna be the laser beams, and we're gonna make it happen, baby.
So smoked.
My feet are on fire. My body's on fire. I can't see the fire. Tom Cruise.
You're not on fire.
I'm pretty sure I'm on fucking fire.
Thank you, dear Lord, baby Jesus. 8 ounce, baby Jesus.
Couldn't ask for better view. Big fucking sun.
So cool.
They got laser beams up top, right?
Oh, they got plenty of laser beams up top. Oh, that's a video. We're a video mode. Oh.
It's kind of nice with all.
You look sexy. Big sexy. Where are we?
We're at the top of Mallos. Fucking cut.
Cut. I don't even remember what this one's called, to be honest.
I don't know either, but we're at Riglos.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
Just topped out
Majestic
mosquitos.
Beautiful view, dude. It's like incredibly green. It's insane how green it is.
Hey, give me your best crab walk. Come on now.
So fucking rude. Oh, look who decided to join me. Dude, it's a fat ledge. You're fine. Come on. Just don't trip. You look like a velociraptor right now.
Yeah, dog. I'm trying to maintain serious
Meh. Goats on water. Meh. Dude, the core score is going up with the bands. Chow body. Ooh. Meh. Yeah, you. Look at me sitting right here.
You're feeding the fish, Tilly.
Let it rip. Ooh, ooh, ooh. 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10?
Yeah.
Dude, was my splash not 10 feet?
No, you've been losing too much weight.
Yeah, just paddle right past me.
Paddle right on you.
Yeah, buddy.
Look at that. Big body repelling into the abyss. You. Oh. I hope we make it down in time to get food.
Yeah, Till. Give me that blue steel, baby.
Oh, yeah.
We ride where the birds fly. Woo! Yeah. Here it's gone.
Estupido. No, I'm not gonna help him. This is pure entertainment for me. This is the best €5 I've spent the whole trip.
We're never leaving. Yeah.
Jillian, I figured out the toy. Let's go. You have fun with that beer. I'm gonna put up my toy now. The flight is at 6 a.m. So we're gonna get up at like 3:30 a.m. No, just drinking. Yeah.
Tell your mom that it was the best €5 I spent the entire trip.
All right, I'm gonna send you some footage of me playing with my new toy.
Tell her.
Tilly, did you get some 4K footy with me and my new toy?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, Tilly's got the footy, Mom. You're gonna love it. I'm bringing one to Portugal. But I'm glad you guys made it in. So yeah, I'll see you in the morning. I think I land at 8 a.m. Sounds good.
You can tell her.
Love you too. Bye.
Let me talk to her.
What?